All right, this one right here, this PowerPoint, little here, fundamental thing goes out to Zane Jones. Yeah, because we were talking last week about this, the tire debate. This is everybody, everywhere I've worked and everybody I've talked to, with various few exceptions, says it's best to put the new tires on the front if two are being replaced. So all my life I've had that, you know. The rationale is that steering into curves with worn tires is dangerous and hydroplaning can happen if the tread's not deep enough on the front. I've actually experienced that. I've actually slid, you know, because of that. But a lot of tire professionals still believe the tires on those treads should go in the front if it's front wheel drive. Many tire professionals believe it makes a difference what season of the year it is. Many tire professionals ask if the customer for their preference, where do you want us to put the new tire? You've heard that, haven't you? You ever been to the tire store and they say, where do you want us to put the new tire? A lot of them will simply rotate the more worn tires off the front of the vehicle and the back, even when the tires aren't replaced. Now I will tell you what I have done here, when the tires in the back are worn on a rear wheel drive, when they're more worn, I'll put them on the front. I've done that before, I mean repeatedly. I put them on the front. I've done that more than I've done anything else as far as that, so that the tires won't get so worn out, you know, whenever they're spinning out, like the traction tires, how they start to wear out. And so if I've got, you know, like 6 30 seconds on the back, 8 30 seconds on the front, I'll put the 6 30 seconds ones up front so they can wear some. You know, I've done that more than a few times. The depth of the tread on a tire directly impacts at what point a tire will start having them. Tires on the front will typically wear more than the tires on the rear. That's a fact, right? And typically, and I'll tell you something else, if Gene and them, when they're driving around on them maintenance trucks out in the parking lot, they will wear out a set of front tires, just going slow around them curves, pushing the tread off the tire. If the tires are rotated every 5,000 to 8,000 miles, the tires on the vehicle will have reasonably even tread, so they're not going to be any worse than a lot of people don't rotate their tires. They have their tires looked at, the front tires are worn out, and the back tires still have some tread left on them. It's necessary only to replace the front tires. Well, Shannon had her car, she hadn't rotated her tires like she should on her little car. And the tread was not that much different on either one of the tires. But she was hearing it sounded like a rah, 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 rah. It was really noisy tires in the front, because whenever she rotated them, it had already established a wear pattern that made them really noisy on the front. So, you know, she wanted to put back like they were. But anyway, the tread depth wasn't even an issue on those, it was a noise thing. If one pair of tires has more tread on it than the other pair, the pair with less tread will start to hydroplane with less water on the road surface than the other pair. If the pair of tires that began to hydroplane first is on the front, it's easier to regain control of the vehicle. This is what Zane was talking about. What I was thinking about when Zane was talking about, I was thinking, well, Zane heard this from Firestone. There has to be something to it. You know, because Firestone and Bridgestone got in a lot of trouble about their tires coming apart a few years ago, you know. Matter of fact, one of my students, there was a tire store that sold him some tires that weren't supposed to be sold. And they drove that. They came apart on the vehicle he was driving and killed his dad. And he wound up getting a big settlement out of that, but it was because the tires came apart. And you know the ones, Ford and Firestone kind of went their separate ways a few years back because of the SUVs turning over because of the tread coming off the tires and all that. But anyway, so they're really sensitive to that kind of thing. I said, well, if a tire outfit as big as Firestone is saying it, there's got to be a reason why they're saying that. You know what I mean? Because they're all about protecting themselves from that kind of thing. Because everybody wants to sue somebody who's got a lot of money. And Firestone's got a lot of money. Right? The driver will feel the skid in the steering wheel when the skid starts. The intuitive action of taking your foot off the accelerator and steering in the direction of the skid will prevent loss of control. A lot of people don't even know how to do that. You know what I mean? Everybody in this room probably does. You know, if it starts to skid that way, you let off the gas and you just turn into it and then it straightens it out. When the back tires are starting to skid, it's hard to control it. You know, the loss of control is harder to detect because it's not felt in the steering wheel, and the actions to control it are counterintuitive, which is turning away from the direction of the skid. All right. If there's been a hydroplaning accident, it's imperative the tires are examined by a forensics professional. In other words, just people that go look. There was a lady one time that bought a car from our company when I was down there. Well, there was this guy, and he was Paul, and his last name started with an F. I had no point in saying his last name. He was driving a company car, And so he happened to have a car at home exactly the same, that had exactly the same size tires on it. And this guy was a real shyster. And so he took the best tires off the company car and put them on his car. Which what happened there was, it was back in the days when some cars still had bias ply tires and some had radials. He wound up putting a radial on the right front and the left rear, and a bias ply tire on the left front and the right rear. And no, I did not know that he had done this, you know what I'm saying? I mean, because he basically came out of the car and they sold it to one of the company employees. And so she was driving it on Gulfway Drive, and all of a sudden, you know, she went to stop and it just started turning every which way, and she didn't hurt her, but it tore the car all to pieces. And they told me, they said, go over there to the boneyard and look at that car and see if you can figure out what happened. And when I walked around it, I saw that the tires had been swapped out. And that was what caused the accident, was the tires. Well, in those days, you know, nobody really did anything about it. I came back and told them. I said, the tires were mismatched. And those aren't tires that we put on there, you know. And I knew that knothead. Of course, it'd be hard to prove that he did it, you know. But anyway, there was another guy I told you about that. I think I may have mentioned this in brakes. This Cajun guy named T-Boy. There's a lot of Cajun guys named T-Boy. And he was driving his pickup truck, and he had changed out the brakes. And he had drum brakes on all four wheels. And he called David Hughes up at Parkhouse. He goes, hey, I put brakes on my truck, and when I hit the brake, I'll go back to where I come from. And so what he meant was, he says, so David said he drove down the road. When he hit the brakes, the truck swapped ends in the road. Just like that, and he took all the wheels off and the brake drums, and he found out the guy had put the short shoes all on the left front and right rear, and the long shoes on the opposite corner. you know, he didn't stop here to brake shoes a brake shoe. He wasn't paying no mind to which way they went, you know. But it's possible to install the tire. It could be legally negligent responsible for all injuries suffered. Front wheel drive cars. Now this is tricky. Natural to assume the wheels that have to do the pulling should have the best traction. The natural assumption is wrong. One of the likely reasons the installation of 2 new tires has done wrong on so many front wheel drive cars. Okay. All wheel drive vehicles, the rule is the same. The best tires go on the back. I backed up. These are myths here. Snow tires, the rule is most tread on the back. You need snow tires in the front wheel drive. Those are the tires that do all the pulling. You got to put the snow tires on all 4 wheels. You don't just put, you know, tires with better traction like that. Here's another myth. Makes a difference what season. Likely a corollary of the front wheel drive snow tire myth. Since people are most concerned about traction in the winter snow conditions, the argument for wanting the best traction on the wheels doing the pulling seems the strongest. Yet the front wheel slipping, even if the tires are doing the pulling, is less dangerous than losing control of the back of the car. This is the reason all tire manufacturers say best tires on the back. If you need better traction on pulling tires, then get 4 tires. I know that I called a couple of 3 tire stores, and tire stores were confused about this too. But it was funny. My wife had this Tempo that we had, and it was nearly a new car. And whenever she has a tendency to take off kind of snappy, and when she's sitting on this white stripe, you know, and, you know how it digs out. And so I looked at her tires, and she had worn the one on the right front pretty bad. So I rotated the tires, and then she wore that one pretty bad. And when she took it to the tire store, both the tires on the right side were slam out, and the one on the left side looked real good. You know, Mike was really confused by that. Blowout risk, of course you'd rather have a blowout on the back as opposed to the front. But if you're going to have a blowout at highway speeds, the tread depth is not going to be the cause. See what I'm saying? The tread depth is not going to be the cause of a blowout. You know, a blowout's going to be caused by hitting something in the road, or the tire coming apart. The tread depth is not part of that. A tire with a really good tread, did y'all see? How many of y'all saw Daniel Gonzalez's picture of his crash where his Blazer was upside down? Did you see that?
I see the picture.
It slung all the tread off one of the tires, and the tread would look really good on all 4 tires on that one. But the tires were too old. You know what I mean? His tires, he had really old tires on that thing, and it slung the tread off of it. So it really wasn't the tire manufacturer's fault. The tire, he let them run to them. The 6-year-old tires are too old. Just too old. You need to change them. My wife changes her tires. You know, has to change her tires before, well, they still got good tread on them because they get old enough to where they just need to be swapped out. I had my dad do that on his car. I had him get a set of tires when they were too old. So, a blowout or driving in the rain on the interstate, oversteer, losing control, rear wheels outside, understeer is losing control of the front wheels, right? So, this is Goodyear. Goodyear says when you select a pair of replacement tires in the same size and construction as those on the car, put them on the rear axle. That's what Goodyear says. See, this is what the courts look at. If you've got a situation where there's something going on with a lawsuit, they look at what the manufacturer says, because that's the last word. If you're ever going to court about anything, have documents, some kind of documents, because if they look at a document, they see something, but if they just hear you talking, they don't pay a lot of attention to that. Bridgestone, Firestone. From the replacement manual, winter tires are best applied to all vehicle positions, so you put them all the way around, right? If winter tires are applied to the front axle, they must also be installed on the rear. Don't apply winter tires only to the front. This applies to all passenger cars and light trucks, including the front wheel drive 4x4 and all-wheel drive vehicles. Dunlop says, now we'll see, this is Dunlop and that says Dunlop. When you select a pair of replacement tires in the same size and construction, put them on the rear. Michelin, a pair of new tires should go in the back. See video. I couldn't find the video, but you know what I'm saying. BF Goodrich, replacement of 2 tires is recommended. All 4 tires are replaced at the same time. Whenever only 2 tires are replaced, a new one should be put on the rear. The new tires with deeper tread may provide better grip and water evacuation in wet driving conditions. And Continental, I always liked Continental tires. I mean, Volkswagens come with Continental tires brand new. I mean, whenever we used to get, Volkswagen bugs with my dad, I love those Continental tires. They last a long time. Winter tires should be used on all 4 wheel positions. Never put non-radial winter tires on the rear if radials are on the front, except when the vehicle has duals on the rear. On the front wheel drive or performance vehicles, it may be advisable to install winter or all-season tires on all wheel positions to maintain consistent handling in winter conditions. Now, in a confidential California case, the plaintiff's vehicle lost control in a puddle of water, resulted in a rollover, wound up being a quadriplegic. He probably should have been wearing a seatbelt anyway, but nevertheless. While all the tires on the plaintiff's car had adequate tread, the defendant sold the plaintiff 2 new tires just before the accident and put them on the front. Now, tire stores do this. A lot of them do it. They put them on the front or the last row. This was a violation of the defendant's company policy, and this states settled for $8.5. Now, see, the defendant's company policy actually was to put them on the back, and somebody put them on the front. That was the point of that one. Costco and General Motors settled for $10 million. Costco had installed the 2 new Michelin tires on the front, and the General Motors dealer had inspected the tires just before the accident, didn't detect the misplacement, or was unaware of the manufacturer's recommendation. So, and this one right here, you might remember me telling you about this guy that got in trouble. It was doing a vehicle inspection up in New England somewhere, and he was supposed to pull the wheels off and check the brakes, and he didn't. It was part of a state mandated vehicle inspection, and the lady's brakes failed, and she got killed, and he got put in jail for doing a bad vehicle inspection. You know what I mean? But he got so used to feel like he just figured out it'd probably be all right anyway. I'm not in the mood. I'm not going to pull the tires off today, and it wound up being a really expensive problem. And this was the caveat. I got this from a website that was going into this in great detail. The caveat at the end of the thing says that while this is intended to outline general guidelines and considerations for tire placement, it's not all inclusive. So apparently they know of times when it's, there's exceptions to that. I don't know. All right. Hey, Gene. Yeah.
Is it right if I change the oil in my truck?
Oh, yeah, sure. But anyway, so that was something I felt like it needed to be said, because you guys are going to be working out there. You know what I mean? And you need to know, and you're going to be working on yours. But you need to know that or somebody else is, and you need to know what to tell them. You see what I mean? Because you got 2 little girls, right?
I do.
That's important. All right. So, but where I'm going with that was, we can always learn something new. A lot of times you can have something that you've believed for a long, long time, and then it turns out this is just not the way it is. And once again, as Zane was talking about the other day, I just got to run that through my head. Whenever I make a bad call, I always say, how did I do this? What happened? I'm like, if I'm just working on a car and nobody else is involved with me, and I see something blow up in my face, I'll say, now what should I have done different to keep this from happening? I mean, so anytime you make any sort of a mistake, or you have a comeback, or something doesn't turn out the way that you thought it would, it's always a good idea to back up, look at your situation, and say, what's the truth on this thing? And I was always impressed with the guy I used to work for over in Dothan, the big boss man. Anytime there was a dispute a customer had, a lot of times he would call me to talk to the guy because he knew that I would tell him the truth. He was interested in the truth. He wasn't interested in figuring out who's going to win the argument, or who's gonna get to leave without getting their money back, or something like that. Now, if somebody came up there trying to sell him a bill of goods, he'd tell them to hit the road. But if they come up there and it was a dispute, and he felt like I could answer the question, particularly that one time we had a service manager we couldn't trust, he would call me up there and ask me, he says, what do you think about this? And I'd go check the records, and I'd say, yeah, this is, you need to give the guy's money back. So, but anyway, that was, I do a shout out to Zane on that. Because like I say, if somebody like Firestone is making a judgment like that, there's a doggone good reason for it, or they wouldn't be making that call. And so,